What is up, New York? Welcome back to episode 63 of New York State of Sports here on IE Sports Radio, direct feed for all that is Sports with K here with you once again. And we have to talk, of course, the Yankees following the World Series. Looked like there was going to be a Game 6 in Los Angeles. Looked like there was going to be at least some hope. The season ends in the most embarrassing way to possibly end, with a flaw that fans saw, the team didn't see. What did the Yankees go from here? Are they actually the favorites to keep Juan Soto? Not do that. Jets at least salvaged part of their season on Halloween to get a win over the Texans, and what that could mean going forward. And the stretch that they're going to have to keep winning and hopefully get some help. The Giants, they need a lot of help. They get swept by the Commanders, and no wins in the state really in the future. Well, there is one Sunday in Europe. We have lots of time to win a game in Europe. Knicks continue to do some good things, especially going to town. The Nets have actually been a nice surprise to begin the year. We'll talk about them. The Islanders keep getting players in here left and right. Rangers keep winning. Football, the Army staying undefeated. We have some big soccer with the Red Bull pulling a massive upset last night against Columbus. And college basketball starts tonight. It should be a fun college basketball season locally with Casino in year 2 at St. John's, Rutgers with the 2 freshmen, and St. Paul with Jimmy Holiday as well. Stay tuned. We'll be talking about all that next. Here on New York State And again, thank you for joining. This is episode 3, New York State of Sports on IE Sports Radio, direct feed for all that is sports. As we get into the first show of November, it's always a good time. We get to November. Usually it's a good time for winning football teams, which New York seems to not have. But you used to get basketball in full swing, hockey full swing. College basketball, as I mentioned, starts tonight, so we'll have some fun along the way with that. I want to remind you can follow us on X, IG, Facebook, TikTok at IE Sports Radio. It's a lot of fun. So be sure to follow all of us there. Like and subscribe here to all of our shows on YouTube. We go live every day. There's shows in every market. There's shows about different sports. We have a lot of fun with that. If you miss any portion of this show, or just want to hear me talk again, Apple Podcasts, Spreaker, Spotify, all that fun stuff, that's where you're going to want to go and check it out. We have shows as well for website pages for every show at iesportsradio.com/New York State of Sports, where you can go for that. And also, you can follow me on X. We'll follow the show on X at NY State Sports IE, or you can follow me on X as well. You can follow at Rickinator555. So we're going to talk all things Yankees. I'm going to break everything down. Who's to blame? What's going on? As the offseason is in full swing, actually starting at 5 p.m. today. The baseball offseason gets into hot stove mode. We'll talk about the epilogue that was the Yankees season and why it's still a failure, even though you make the World Series. Stay tuned. We're going to hear, of course, from our sponsors at Planet Jerky, Seal the Deal Wax Seals, and some smart words from our founder at IE Sports Radio, Mr. Larry B. We'll be right back in just a few minutes.
IE Sports Radio fans, this show is brought to you by Planet Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky. Planet Jerky is the official jerky of the 2022 California League champion Lake Elsinore Storm, Single A affiliate of the San Diego Padres. This all brisket jerky has gluten-free options, contains no MSG, no sodium nitrate, is low in sugar, and high in protein. Go to their website at planetjerky.net and follow them on Instagram at Planet Jerky. Planet Jerky, the jerky that's on a whole other planet.
Hey there, IE Sports Radio fans. Be sure to check out our sponsor, Seal the Deal Wax Seals by Cecilia B. You just finished your very own wedding or baby shower invitations and you're looking for that extra special touch? Maybe you just wrote a letter to a relative or a friend and you want to add to their smile when they receive it. Then seal the deal with Cecilia's handmade sealing wax stamps for your invitations, letters, and gifts. You bring the deal, we'll bring the seal. You can find them on Instagram at sealthedeal_wax stamps and on Facebook, Seal the Deal Wax Seals.
For the last 10 years, IE Sports Radio has been bringing you amazing content ranging from interviewing legendary athletes, coaches, and other authorized media personnel to building tailor-made shows dedicated to all major sports cities around the country. Make sure to follow us at IE Sports Radio on X, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube to keep up with the latest in sports and with all of our shows. Also, make sure to check out our daily updated website at iesportsradio.com. At iesportsradio.com, you can see our daily show schedule and check out all of our show pages with personal bios to learn a little bit more about each of our awesome hosts. In addition to our show pages, you can catch the iSports Radio blog, Hall of Fame, Fans of the Month page, and our merchandise shop including t-shirts, tank tops, caps, long sleeves, hoodies, and more. For now over a decade here at IE Sports Radio, we've continued to be by the fans, for the fans, and we thank you all for your support and for making IE Sports Radio your direct feed for all that is sports.
And special thanks to our sponsors, Planet Jerky, Premium Brisket Beef Jerky. Be sure to snack on that during the football, basketball, college football, any sporting event you're attending over this next few months. Seal the Deal Wax Seals, great thing for all of your fall events and winter events. And of course, be sure to check out the shop. Check out some cool merch. Pick up a hat, t-shirt, all that fun stuff over and represent IE Sports Radio today. So we're less than a week removed from the Yankees falling in 5 games to the Los Angeles Dodgers in the World Series. And look, the Yankees at least found a way to avoid getting swept. I mean, Anthony Volpe had a huge grand slam at the beginning of Game 4. Yankees were able to use their bullpen to hang on in that game and then break it open in the 8th inning. And then you get to Game 5, and Game 5 is going to be one that haunts Yankee fans, and I think haunts this organization for a long time. They get ahead early 3-0 against Jack Flaherty, which was no surprise because Met fans can tell you the same thing. Flaherty was great in the first game of that series, was bad in the next one. And Flaherty also had hamstring tightness in Game 1. So you knew he was not 100% in some way. Judge hits a huge home run. We'll get to him in a minute. And then Jazz Chisholm follows up with a home run of his own. Yankees got a 3-0 lead. Things are looking good. They get the Verdugo base hit in the second and make it 4-0. Stanton homers during Boone's interview with Tom Verducci. It's 5-0 in the third. Things are looking good. Yankee fans are saying, hey, we're going to pack our bags. We're going to L.A. We've got all the momentum. Things are looking pretty good. Garrett Cole's on the mound. He's got a no-hitter through the first 4 innings. And things are all of a sudden are looking pretty good. Then the fifth, that darn fifth inning. And you get the base hit from Kike, and then Aaron Judge, who I misses a routine pop-up in center field. Now, you could say that he's trying to figure out if he could double up Hernandez. You could try to say he lost in the lights. Point is he lost the ball. Last time he had him into reach. Then Anthony Volpe makes an error trying to get Kike at third, and a ground ball hit the short. All of a sudden, it's bases loaded. Cole strikes out Luck, strikes out Ohtani. Looks like they're going to get out of the inning. And then for some reason, when Mookie Betts hits a ground ball to first, whether Anthony Rizzo isn't trying to book it to the bag or Garrett Cole isn't even, he's getting close to the bag, the Yankees messed up something that you should know in spring training how to do. That cost them a run. Then Freddie Freeman gets a 2-run single. It's 5-3, and Freeman ends up winning World Series MVP. And good thing for him, gets a World Series with 2 teams. Teoscar Hernandez then doubles, and all of a sudden a 5-0 lead turns into 5-5. And the Yankees do end up taking the lead again in the 6th inning on the sac fly by Stanton, but they missed a lot of chances in this game to score runs. And that's what they've been doing really the entire postseason. Was every time they got a chance for runs in scoring position, more often than not, they would fail. They were 1 for 10 in Game 5 with men in scoring position and left 12 on base. That can't happen. And it happened repeatedly. It happened against Kansas City. It happened against Cleveland. But those 2 teams weren't good enough compared to the Dodgers to overcome that. Clay Holmes gets you out of the 7th after Cole pitches into the 7th inning. Tommy Kahnle comes in, which I didn't have a problem with. I know a lot of fans are saying use Luke Weaver for 6 outs. I had no problem starting with Kahnle. The formula was kind of working for them to go that direction, but Kahnle didn't have it. Ends up loading the bases. They bring in Luke Weaver, who gives up the sac flies to Mookie Betts and gives it the sac fly to Betts, makes it 7-6 after Gavin Lux had a sac fly, which made it 6-6. Yankees end up having a chance in the 8th inning, but Anthony Rizzo strikes out against Blake Trinan. And Walker Buehler ends up closing the game in the 9th. Dodgers win their first full season World Series since '88. And you can comment here on YouTube whether you think this season is a success or a failure. And this doesn't take away from the Dodgers. Look, the Dodgers were the better baseball team. The Dodgers were the better baseball team because they're more complete. They have depth, and they know how to do the little things well. They can get sack bunts down. They can get a productive out and move a runner. Think about Game 1. Dodgers got back in that game really with sack flies. They didn't get the big hit, but they found a way to win. And when this Yankee team isn't slugging, and when this Yankee team isn't hitting home runs, it is very hard for them to score. Extremely difficult. But the big issue, and kind of I think shocked the Yankees to some extent, but didn't shock the fans. Their defense is awful. And the fact that they had 3 players nominated for Gold Gloves, I'm not sure what the criteria is for Gold Gloves necessarily. And they have some good defenders for sure. Like Anthony Volpe last year won the Gold Glove at short, was a finalist this year. Verdugo is a better defender in the outfield than he is at hitting at the plate. And Aaron Judge is okay. Juan Soto, I don't think should have been a Gold Glove finalist in the right field, but the Yankee fan base all thought throughout the year, hey, we can't run. We make dumb moves on the bases. We don't make the routine plays. We give teams more outs than they need to have. That's going to cost us. And you read an article in the New York Post, I think it was by Joel Sherman. It said the Dodgers kind of advanced scouted the Yankees so well that they knew things that the fans knew. And the team just would never address it. They would never call out a player publicly. Even Aaron Boone after the game in Game 5 was making excuses for plays and things like that. Those things can't happen. And for once you want a manager to say, we're bad at this, we have to be better at it. I'm not saying call individual players out, but I'm saying at least you got to call the team out because you can't be making errors like that in a big game. That ended your season. And this Yankee team kind of was identified like that. And that's why, to me, it's a failure. They didn't lose primarily because this Dodger team was light years ahead of them. The Yankees blew game one because of poor defense, and you could argue Boone's decision to use Nestor Cortez instead of Tim Hill. But again, bullpen moves are going to happen. But they blew game one, and you could argue they blew game five. The Yankees should have been up 3-2 going to Los Angeles, and they were not. And that's why this series, to me, makes this season a failure. And a reason I bring up Aaron Judge, and you saw the bottom of the screen, Aaron Judge hurts his legacy. I don't think it's dampened that it can't recover from it. I think it absolutely could recover from it. But if you want to be an all-time great Yankee, I'm not talking a great Yankee because Aaron Judge is a great Yankee, and he always is going to be one. You want to be an all-time great, you got to perform in the playoffs, and you got to win a World Series. Ask Alex Rodriguez, who had an 0-for-29 slump with men on base going into the 2009 playoffs, had his breakout moments. Yankees won the World Series. It won't, not for all fans, but changed the perception of A-Rod to some fans. Aaron Judge is loved by the fan base. I mean, he's the captain. There's a reason. That other captain, though, got World Series rings galore, and Derek Jeter. And he would always come up big in those moments. I'm not saying Judge always has to come up big, but when you struggle in the playoffs like he did, and then you make a huge error in that fifth inning that essentially helps the Dodgers rally, it's going to be hard to overcome. And he can hit 58, 60 home runs next year. It doesn't matter. What matters is now, the Yankees are the new Dodgers. What they do in 162 games doesn't matter. What they do in the ALDS doesn't matter. What they do in the ALCS doesn't matter. They have to win a championship. The Dodgers got theirs. Dave Roberts is now, I won't say completely off the hot seat, but now he gets a little bit of a brief because, hey, he won a championship, and he won a championship in a non-COVID year. And the Yankees can celebrate making their first World Series in 15 years. It's a good accomplishment. Not going to take that away from them at all. But it's a failure of a year. And it's a mandate the organization set long ago. Championship or bust. When you trade for Juan Soto, you give up as much as the Yankees gave up in their pitching with Michael King and Drew Thorpe and Randy Vasquez and Johnny Brito, you are essentially saying, win now. They didn't do it. To me, that makes it a failure. And it's not saying that, oh my gosh, we got to fire everybody because they lost, but you can have a failure and not have guys fired because of it. It's the way it goes. Like Luis Rojas, to me, you can talk about changing third base coaches. To me, it doesn't really matter what they do from that standpoint because they've changed third base coaches before. It never worked. They've changed hitting coaches before. It doesn't work. So I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole. But the fact of the matter is the Yankees 2025 roster is going to look extremely different. Regardless of whether they bring Juan Soto back or not, it looks totally different. They're going to have a new first baseman. They declined the option on Anthony Rizzo. And as good of a leader that Rizzo was, his skills were starting to decline. The Yankees need a new first baseman anyway. They could go with Ben Rice. They can go with Oswaldo Cabrera. But they're probably going to go outside the organization for that. They either need a new second baseman if they choose to not bring back Gleyber Torres, and we'll see by 5 o'clock today if they decide to pick up extend him a qualifying offer, which would be $21 million. I doubt they will because I think Torres would actually accept that, but we'll see. If Torres does re-sign, then they need a new third. Then you don't need a third baseman. But if Torres doesn't re-sign, you could move Jazz to second and get a third baseman. Alex Bregman's on the market, so there's an option there. If they don't keep Soto, or even if they do, they have to decide what Jason Dominguez is in the outfield because they put him on the postseason roster and never used him except a pinch run. Every fan was calling for him to get at bats in September. He didn't get him. You can talk about how much they love Verdugo. Verdugo's a free agent. They're not going to bring him back. So they need to figure out what Jason Dominguez is. Is he their future, or are they going to trade him to help their now? Because if you have him on that roster in 2025, he's got to be starting opening day, in my opinion. You have a starting rotation that's pretty much set. The question is today by 5 o'clock what they do with Garrett Cole. Garrett Cole opted out, but if the Yankees decide to void the opt-out, they would pick up an extra year at $36 million. So they would owe Cole $5 at $180. Why that's not definite is because Cole also dealt with elbow issues last year. I do think the Yankees will pick up the extra year. I can't see them going into next year without Garrett Cole unless they're willing to overpay for Corbin Burns or Max Fried or any of these top pitchers. Their starting rotation, though, is pretty much set between Cole, Cortez, Schmidt, Heel, Rodon. They do get Marcus Stroman back, although he was never used in the playoffs. Wonder how that's going to affect him. And they also got to look at the bullpen. Luke Weaver's back, but Clay Holmes is a free agent. Tommy Kahnle's a free agent. A lot of missing pieces in that bullpen they're going to have to try to fit together, even though they found their closer for next year, Luke Weaver. So this Yankee team is going to go through a lot of changes. And the question is going to be, which New York team is more in play for Juan Soto? To me, it's the Mets. And I thought Soto's post-game comments after Game 5 didn't exactly change my opinion on it. I always thought, to me, if the Yankees aren't going to pay top dollar for Soto, and I don't think they are, I think they're going to try to put a very competitive offer on the table and hope Soto decides to take less because he loved it here. But if Steve Cohen, the Mets owner, really wants Juan Soto, he's going to get him. Because when you have Scott Boras as your agent, more often than not, you're going to take the top dollar on the table. And if the Mets are clearly dead set on pairing Soto with Lindor and making it the 1-2 punch, they're going to do it. But ask yourself this, and Ron Darling kind of brought it up this week. Are you willing to go all in on Soto when you have a need at first base if P. Alonso leaves? You could always put Vientos there, but you still have to fill 3/5 of your rotation from a year ago. The Mets have needs on the table that they have to address as well. Now that they are more financially flexible than the Yankees are, because the Yankees already dedicated a chunk of their payroll to Cole, to Stanton, to Judge. And the Mets, on the other hand, a lot of their dead money coming off the books. A lot of those bad moves they made to be competitive a couple of years ago are almost wiped away. So they have, it's not a blank slate, but close to a blank slate as you can have. And if they want him, they're going to get him. And to me, it's going to be about, can the Yankees put up a competitive offer where it's maybe not more than the Mets, but enough to where Soto wants to stay because of the environment he's around, at unfinished business. That's what you're kind of pitching to Juan Soto. There's unfinished business here. He's got his World Series. So he's not really pushing, hey, best fit at a title. You're not doing that here. Juan Soto wants the cash and deserves the cash. He had a really good year. What kind of year would he have without Aaron Judge? I don't know. But he's still going to have a really, really good seasons for the bulk of his career. He's barely in his mid-20s. He's a generational player. And to me, the Yankees have to try to keep him. I think they'll make every effort to, but to me, the Mets seem more of the favorite. Let me know what you think here in the comment section. Yankees, Mets, is there another team you think for Soto? I don't buy the Dodgers stuff. Eventually, they're going to run out of cash. I saw cases for like Toronto or Baltimore. Like, we'll see. It's going to be a fun offseason, but both New York teams have work to do, and it starts at 5 o'clock today when teams have to extend qualifying offers, and free agents can officially sign with other clubs. Baseball offseasons still tend to be slow with news as is. I don't think we'll see much until the winter meetings in December, although the GM meetings, I believe, are this week. So we'll start to hear that hot stove rumors and all that fun stuff. So we'll take our first break. We'll come back. We'll talk some football. The Jets finally pick up a win. And one player I think is starting to break out a little bit more now that he's out of the spotlight. And we'll talk Giants and just the misery they've become. And really yesterday, it wasn't about the offense like it usually is. We'll look at the future of their franchise as well as we head to some football talk coming up next here on New York State of Sports and IE Sports Radio, direct feed for all this sports. We will see it in just a minute.
Sports fans, do you like teams that are tough, cities that are tougher, and fan bases that are passionate about their teams? How about teams that are historic and stadiums that are iconic? then you belong in Chicago, and you need to check out Chi-Town Weekly. Join me, Adam Kernan, every week as we keep up with all things Chicago sports. Bears, Bulls, Blackhawks, Cubs, White Sox. We'll cover them all, plus more. The Windy City is always buzzing, and we'll keep you up on all the big games and major stories. So tune in to Chi-Town Weekly every week right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
What's happening, sports fans? Are you a fan of Southern California sports? Are you looking for a show hotter than a hot summer day in California? Then look no further than the SoCal Supreme Sports Show, where I talk about all things Southern California sports. That's right, all sports teams from Southern California. From the hard-hitting tackles of the NFL, to the killer crossovers and big three-pointers of the NBA and WNBA, to the grand slams of the MLB, to the bone-chilling goals of the NHL, and to the booming kicks of the MLS, the SoCal Supreme Sports Show has it all for you. Oh, and let us not forget about the college sports as well. So join me, Taryn Rodriguez, every week here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Welcome back here to New York State of Sports and IE Sports Radio, direct feed for all the sports. Again, congrats to the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. Taryn Rodriguez hosting a good show about the Dodgers and all the other teams out there in California. But let us talk about some football. And let's get into the Jets, who we always want to start with the team that won. At least we had a New York football team win this week. And the Jets last Thursday didn't quite erase the stench of that loss to the Patriots, because I think in hindsight, that's going to be the one that ends up being the death nail to their season. And it was a god-awful first half against the Houston Texans. I mean, the play on the field was as awful as some of the costumes in the stands. Like, it was that bad. It was 7-0 Texans at the break. A Texans team that's bad on their offensive line. Didn't have Stephon Diggs for the first time, as he's out for the season. Didn't have their top receiver, Nico Collins. And they had a tough time stopping Joe Mixon on the ground. Mixon had 24 carries, 106 yards, and a touchdown. Houston ran it for 5 yards a carry as a team, but the Jets found a way in the second half. I don't know what was said in that locker room. Clearly, Davante Adams' speech a couple weeks ago didn't work. But they found a way to bounce back. And they found a way to deliver in a big way. In the third quarter, they get an 11-play, 70-yard drive to start, capped off by the Rodgers to Garrett Wilson 21-yard touchdown. Texans kick a field goal, and then on the craziness, that was the 3rd and 19, Rodgers throws it up to the end zone, and Garrett Wilson makes an insane, crazy catch that reminded fans of what Odell Beckham did a few years ago. Difference is the Jets actually won this game, which I think puts more of the lore on the Wilson catch than the Beckham catch. The Jets almost end a 14-10 lead. Fairbairn misses a field goal. Jets end up taking the ball down the field, 8 plays, 80 yards, capped off by Davante Adams, 37-yard touchdown. Jets are making some really good third down conversions in the drive. They were eating the clock, and Rodgers had a really good play fake on a third down to set up the Adams touchdown. They were 5 for 12 on third down in the game. They held the Texans to 6 for 17 in those situations. And the offense might have found something. I still think they could use more of a ground attack, because Breece Hall had 15 carries for 74 yards at 5 yards a carry. pretty much. Like, I want to see Breece Hall get 20-plus carries just to get this offense moving a little bit. Because it looked like the Jets were going to have egg on their face. Because when you look at the first half, Malachi Corley, the rookie, was going to have a touchdown and ended up dropping the ball before the goal line. Which, again, coming off of the Yankee defensive embarrassment the night before, and then the embarrassment against the Patriots the Jets had, you're like, this is ridiculous. They never seem to fix anything. All's well that ends well. But they find a way to get it done. And you look at Garrett Wilson. I said there was one player that's kind of taking advantage of being out of the spotlight. And Garrett Wilson's still a name in this Jet offense. But you think about when you add Devontae Adams into the mix, Adams had 7 catches, 91 yards in that touchdown that we talked about. Garrett Wilson is going to see teams' number 2 corners. Where in the past, like we saw against the Patriots last week, it was going to be Wilson against Christian Gonzalez. And Christian Gonzalez has been a really good emerging corner in this league. If Wilson is going to go one-on-one with number 2 guys, he's going to win more often than not. In his last 2 games, he has gotten 18 targets, completed 14 of them, for 203 yards and 2 touchdowns. Like, he has been a guy that's starting to get, he basically out of his last 5 games from Rodgers, he's gotten 60 targets. So this is a player that's getting more reps with Aaron Rodgers, starting to get more of a chemistry, and starting to maybe not quite be the player people thought, but getting into that. He's going to get more chances to make those big plays. So this is a Jet offense still very much in the mix, very much in experiment mode. Like, I don't trust this offense all of a sudden go on a tear, but they're finding different ways to success, and we'll see if they carry that second half over. And I like what the defense did as well. Jet defense in this one had 8 sacks, 2 from Jamie Sherwood, 2 from Michael Clemens. And we haven't seen that since week 3. We haven't seen this Jet pass rush really get home. Now, it helps the Texans have, as I said, a very bad offensive line right now due to their injuries, and they just could not protect Stroud at all. It also helps Stroud had no time to throw to anybody. Like, you look at Texans receiving room outside of Tank Dell, there wasn't much Houston had to really offer a threat. So I don't really see where this Jet team could take advantage. The one problem I didn't like in this game, they had still a ton of penalties. They had 9 in the game, so they've not fixed the penalty issue. That's something that if they want to go on a run and they want to win 4 in a row to get back over 500, they have to fix that. Because you look at this Jet schedule, and they've got a really tough game next week. They are at the Cardinals, 4:25 on CBS. Cardinals are 5-4. And this is a really good Cardinal team because if the Jets can't stop the run, they're not going to stop James Conner. James Conner's had a really good season. He's staying healthy, doing some good things. This is an Arizona offense that is in first place in the NFC West. Jets are underdogs by a point right now, as early in the week. But you look at this Jet schedule, and Arizona right now is the last team they play until after Christmas with an over 500 record. And I was looking this stat up yesterday as we were talking about the Giants. I'm diving into some comments here. Ralph's here. How you doing, Ralph? And Mr. Davidson, thank you. Make sure to hit that like button, as Davidson's mentioned. There are 14 teams in the NFL with a winning record. There are 9 with 2 wins. Keep in mind, 2 wins is the fewest in the NFL. There's no team that's 1-8 or 0-9 or whatever, but the bye weeks. There are 9 teams with 2 wins. So a bigger percentage. That's about a quarter of the league. So I don't know if that's good for the NFL. I was trying to decide that yesterday. Is it good or bad for the league that 9 teams are essentially tied for the number 1 pick right now? I'm not so sure, especially this late in the year. Usually you have more of your haves and have-nots separated. That isn't really the case, but can the Jets pass rush get to Kyler Murray? Can they contain Marvin Harrison Jr.? And do they have enough offensively against the Cardinals defense that did really good against Caleb Williams yesterday? If the Jets can win this one, get to 4-6, they've got an Indianapolis team that doesn't know what they're doing at quarterback right now, and then they hit the bye. Like, if you want to be serious, and Devontae Adams kind of said on Instagram, Rome wasn't built in a day, win these next 2. Win these next 2, get to the bye 5-6, and then we can maybe talk about something in December. but I'm not going to start buying the Jets after one game. I need to see a bigger sample size before I start doing that. Taryn's here. Taryn, how are you, my man? Thanks for hopping in. So let's talk Giants. Giants lose yesterday to the Washington Commanders, get swept in the regular season. They lose 27-22. And to me, when I look at this Giant team yesterday, they now dropped to 2-7. I wasn't that upset with the offense yesterday. Daniel Jones throws for 174, a couple of touchdowns, only got sacked twice. The Giant team yesterday that had a better time possession, made 6 of 11 third downs, made both their fourth down. So essentially they were 8 for 13 in third down or worse. You saw Daniel Jones make some plays downfield. At the end of the game, you had the 35-yard touchdown to Theo Johnson. Good to see him get involved in the offense. Maybe that'll be something to watch for the end of the year as he tries to emerge. Tyrone Tracy, 66 yards on the ground. Giants ended up rushing for about 5 a carry. They were able to at least hang in this football game. Even when they couldn't score, they got the 2-yard touchdown from Manhurts, which was their first touchdown at MetLife in a long time. But the Giants' defense, I think, deserved the blame yesterday for a couple of reasons. We talk about a defense that loves to get after the quarterback. They didn't sack Jaden Daniels once yesterday. Daniels was 15 of 22 for 209 and 2 scores. He only ran it 8 times. So you didn't even see Daniels kind of take off and run with it. And when you have Brian Burns and Dexter Lawrence and Ojulari, I know they don't have Thibodeau right now, but you've got to get after the quarterback. You've got to make hits. You've got to make plays. So I'm not going to give this defense a pass yesterday because that's a game when you hold Terry McLaurin to 2 catches for 19 yards. Yes, both of them were touchdowns, but they shut down McLaurin for the bulk of the game. But there was one sequence for the end of the first half. I had it on. I said, this basically exemplifies the Giants season. Giants were down 14-7. It was toward the end of the first half. Daniels makes the Commanders go for it on 4th and 1. Eckler picks up the first down. Daniels then has a 16-yard run that gets called back for holding. So later in the drive, there's a 3rd and 18. 3rd and 18 at the Giant 42. And at that point, you're trying to prevent the Commanders from getting a field goal. Daniels throws it to Dynamic Brown, and Brown stiff arms Drew Phillips. Nobody can make a tackle. Commanders get a first down. Next play, Daniels hits McLaurin for a touchdown in the corner, basically schools Deonte Banks, who has become a bust this year the way he's underperformed. And all of a sudden, the Giants, it looked like they were going to get a stop. They looked like they were going to keep it a 1-score game at the break. They're down 2 scores, and I think that took the wind out of their sails for the most part. You also had a case where Brian Daboll doesn't believe in kicking extra points and kicking field goals. Now, I know that Greg Joseph wasn't there yesterday. They're using Jude McAtamney, who wasn't used in week 2. Remember, the Giants lost week 2 because they didn't have a kicker. They had a kicker yesterday, and they just elected to go for 2, including there was an instance they were going for 2 down 8 with 9:25 to go. And I know I'm not the biggest analytics and math major on the planet, but why are we going for 2 down by 8 points? There's really the risk outweighs the reward because you miss it, you got to go for 2 again. Why not just kick the extra point, make it 24-17? Then you're down 10 late. You might only need a field goal at the end of the game to get it stopped, to tie. Like, I don't understand. And I know Daboll likes to think outside the box, but I never get all these 2-point plays and all these things. But Daboll said today, Darius Slayton's in concussion protocol, so that's not a good thing for the Giants in terms of having that third receiver with Neighbors, who had 9 catches yesterday, and Wan'Dale Robinson, who was shut down by the Commanders' defense. Daniel Jones is going to stay the quarterback. I think he should stay the quarterback. The question, I think, is going to be after the bye, what the Giants decide to do. Like, they have one more game before their bye week. That is next week. Well, that is this week in Germany against the Panthers, 9:30 a.m. at NFL Network. And, geez, why do we have to send this crud football game to Germany? We sent Patriots-Jaguars to London. Now we're sending Giants-Panthers to Germany. That's how we're really growing this sport. And give the Panthers credit yesterday. Bryce Young played well. They beat the Saints, who fired their coach today. But all of a sudden, you look at this Giants schedule, there's not a lot of wins on it. Maybe New Orleans, if they don't win against Carolina and they're favored by 5, I really think you have to start questioning the head coach and general manager, who are going to come back next year for the sole reason they haven't gotten a chance to pick their quarterback yet. Even though I would argue when they gave Daniel Jones a contract, that they did hitch their wagon to him. But if they go 3-14, or 3-13, 2-14, 2-15, whatever it is, like at this point, if you win 2 or 3 more games, you might take yourself out of the quarterback race when you're looking at Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders and Carson Beck and Quinn Ewers and all these guys. Giants need a guy, but they need to also have a foundation in place. And I think that's where they better not lose this game. They did get some help, though, in Dallas for that Thanksgiving game because Dak's now out a couple weeks with a hamstring. So they probably get Cooper Rush in that game, and maybe they exercise their Cowboy demons, if you will. But this is an ugly football game on Sunday that I mean, you're going to get to watch it, but I don't know how to handicap that because I think Carolina has a chance. And I think both these teams, it's going to be ugly, but the Giants might have to win ugly. Terrence says, sorry, the Dodgers had to end the World Series hopes of the Yankees, hoping they get back there. If they do, Terrence, with a different roster, as we talked about earlier. So that will be interesting. The Giants had their chances. Washington is like that, kind of. Yeah, the Commanders are for real. And think about it. I was listening to John Ostremski on his podcast. He brought up a great point. The quarterback that Joe Shane's son wanted his dad to draft in Jayden Daniels could terrorize them for the next 10 years. And it's because Tommy DeVito won some meaningless football games at the end of the year last year, why the Giants weren't picking number 2. That's how some of these things can change. We don't like tanking. We don't like these things in sports, but we look back and say, geez, if you just didn't win that game. Like, they didn't, like, you know, if you're a Giant fan watching Drake May yesterday, drive the Patriots, who had no offensive line, no wide receivers, and getting them to overtime with that crazy play where he's in the huddle for like and running around for like 11, 12 seconds. But you could have had him too. And your GM wanted him. Your coach wanted him. That's where the season's gone. They're a dumpster fire for the Giants. And we'll see if they can save some face if they beat Carolina. If they don't, oh boy, I would not want to be those guys in John Mayer's office the next day going to the bye week. I do think, though, my prediction is after the bye, they go to Drew Lock for the rest of the year. They go to Drew Lock for the last 7 games and kind of just go from there. So we'll take another break. We'll come back. We'll have our grab bag last segment. We got a lot to get into. Knicks and Nets. We'll do hockey. We'll do soccer. We'll do college football. And college basketball is getting underway tonight. Preview St. John's, Seton Hall, and Rutgers. And it's all coming up next here on New York State Sports and IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. We'll be back in just a minute.
What's up, Pittsburgh? This is Ralph Galise, the host of the Injury Report on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Are you that passionate diehard Steelers, Penguins, Pirates, or just a Pittsburgh sports fan? Then please join me on the Injury Report every Tuesday on IE Sports Radio, the direct feed for all that is sports. And I will update you on all that's black and gold, have you telling your Pittsburgh fans and friends what's up with Pittsburgh sports. Tune in Tuesday with me, Ralph Galise, the Injury Report on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Let's go!
Cleveland and Columbus sports fans. This is Jen D, host of the Show of the Land on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. If you love Cleveland and Columbus sports like I do, be sure to tune in live to the Show of the Land on Tuesdays, where we will cover the Cleveland Browns, Cavs, Guardians, and Monsters. We will also talk about the Columbus Blue Jackets, Crew, Fury, and of course, the Ohio State Buckeyes. We'll also cover other colleges in the area like Akron, Kent State, Cleveland State, Mount Union, John Carroll, Baldwin Wallace, Youngstown State, among others. So like I said, if you love Cleveland and Columbus sports like I do, be sure to tune in Tuesdays to the Show of the Land with Jen B on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
And welcome back to New York State of Sports here on IE Sports Radio, direct feed for all that is sports. Ricky K here with you, talking about all things in our grab bag segment. Those not familiar with our grab bag segment, we kind of have our two lead blocks here on the show, and then we kind of dive into some of the other sports and give little tidbits going on. Now, obviously, we're not going to lead with baseball every week, so some of these sports we'll get into the second segments as we get into the cold months in December and January, because it's been weirdly still warm in November. It's like 80 degrees on Halloween, which I think Mother Nature forgot what month it was. But I'll start with the NBA. Knicks on tonight. They're going to take on the Rockets in Houston, favored by 1.5 right now. And Knicks are actually playing pretty well. They're on a 2-game win streak. They did lose to the Cleveland Cavaliers a week ago, and I thought that was a tough one to lose. Darius Garland, though, just took over the fourth quarter. Cleveland has been probably one of the better teams in the NBA so far. I mean, they're still undefeated, so the fact that one of the Knicks' 2 losses to a 7-0 team, and basically their 2 losses right now are to Cleveland and Boston, who are combined 13-1. So you can't really get mad at the Knicks for their losses so far. I thought they had a couple of really good wins. It started last Wednesday against Miami. Knicks went on the road, and I thought everybody contributed in that game. Cat was the big star, 44 points, 13 rebounds. He has had 10-plus boards in each of his last 4 games. So he's getting the sense he's starting to find his footing a little bit. They had 10 points from Deuce McBride off the bench. Brunson had 22. Bridges had 17 with 4 threes. And what was impressive in that win is I thought they did a good job, at least defensively, particularly when he got into the second half. They held the Heat to 22 in the third quarter. Knicks outscored Miami 35-22 to get that win. And then they played the Pistons. They dominated the Pistons. But the Pistons stink. Knicks should go in there and roll, and they did, 128-98. Jalen Brunson had 36, starting 5 in double figures again. Now, they are making some moves. Campaign is dealing with some injuries. Matt Ryan, it sounds like he's going to add to the roster. He's a really good three-point shooter that'll help. You've seen Ariel Hakpodi do some good things in the paint for this Knicks team. So they're at least providing some depth. And we've seen Mikal Bridges improve his three-point shot. He's 7 for 15 in his last 2 games. And the big issue you saw with Bridges was when he changed his form, how ugly that shot looked in preseason. It's starting to get better, which is a good thing. Knicks are in Atlanta tonight. They're in Houston tonight. They're in Atlanta on Wednesday. They host the 1-5 Bucks on Friday. And I know Giannis has been in the news because there have been rumors that if Giannis were to want to leave Milwaukee, the Knicks would be involved. I don't think they have the pieces to do it unless they really want to break up that core, but even then it's a stretch. I could see Brooklyn get involved as we'll dive into the Nets because I think the Nets still need that cornerstone player. It's still New York. The Nets have draft picks. They have young players. They have assets they could move. I think that would be a better fit, at least from a Bucks perspective, if you ever wanted to pull the plug on Giannis and make that work. I don't think they should, because I think they've invested so much in Giannis. But again, in the NBA, it's really a star-driven league that I don't really see where that could go necessarily. So let's talk Nets, who I think have been a nice surprise. Like you look at Jordy Fernandez's club, and they're fun to watch on offense. Like they are a very efficient offensive team. They do some good things well. They did have a couple of really good wins earlier in the week, and actually some pretty respective losses. It started last Tuesday. It took the Nuggets to overtime. They lost 144-139. Then they beat Memphis on the road, second night of a back-to-back. I thought that was pretty good. They then beat the Bulls. So winning 2 games in the span of 3 days, in the span of 4 days, that was good. And you're thinking, hey, they're 3-3. They got a back-to-back. But then they lay an egg to the Pistons yesterday, 106-92. They outscored 54-35 in the second half. That can't happen. Especially when the Pistons' leading scorer, Cade Cunningham, only had 19 points. The thing is, for Brooklyn, they just didn't make threes. They were 9 for 31 from beyond the arc. And Jordy Fernandez even talked about it after the game. They had 31 attempted threes. They had 20 attempted mid-range shots. And in this day and age, the mid-range has kind of been taken out of the game in the NBA. So I think he wants to see more either drive to the basket or take that three-point shot. We have seen some good things. Cam Thomas, I think, has been getting an opportunity. He's averaging 26.6 points per game. We've seen Cam Johnson yesterday, 26 points. So Thomas and Johnson are doing their thing. But I think the linchpin to this offense is Dennis Schroeder. Yes, Schroeder's 31 years old. Probably gets dealt, I think, at the deadline at some point. But you look at Schroeder the last 2 games, he's only had 16 points. Now he's getting steals. He's had 3 steals in each of the last 2. But he had 29 against the Bucks, 28 against the Nuggets, 33 against the Grizzlies. So you have a guy, which Dennis Schroeder is it? The guy who had essentially 90 points in 3 games, the guy that right now in the last 2 hasn't shot the ball well. 7 for 19. So he's a guy that might want to see more attack the basket, necessarily take that perimeter shot. But the Nets will be hosting the Grizzlies tonight as part of that back-to-back. Memphis favored by 5.5. The Nets have a difficult schedule the next couple of days. They play the Celtics 2 of the next 4 games. They play in Boston on Friday and then at home against Boston November 13th. Sandwiched in there by a matchup at undefeated Cleveland on Saturday, and then at the Pelicans next Monday at 8 o'clock. So we'll dive into Nets Pelicans then. But again, you're not expecting too much from the Nets. I think it's just been good that they've been entertaining. But time will tell really if this team can stay competitive all year long, or we're talking about team tanking necessarily. Let's go to the NHL. Devils, interesting week for them. They shut out Vancouver 6-0 earlier in the week and then got shut out in the third period by Calgary in Markstrom's return to the Flames, 3-0. That was the final. And I look at this Devil team. They've got 16 points. They're 7-5-2 on the year. But what's been interesting to me is the Devils have to find more depth. Now, they're getting good production from their stars. Nico Hischier's got 10 goals. Jack Hughes has got 4. Timo Meyer's got 5. I think Dawson Mercer's played well. But outside of that top 6, the Devils need to find depth from their 4 lines. That's going to be, I think, a big key for them. They do take on a Connor McDavid-less Edmonton team tonight. That's an 8:30 puck drop on the NHL Network. Devils will then host Montreal on Thursday. Then they play the Islanders for a second time on Saturday. And then second night of a back-to-back, they will host the Sharks on Sunday. Sharks aren't a really good team. But you got to like at least where New Jersey is right now in the Metropolitan. They've got 16 points. They're a point behind the Rangers, but it seems like right now the Devils, Caps, Hurricanes, and Rangers are kind of separating themselves in that division, at least in the early portion of the year. Speaking of the Islanders, they just keep finding ways to get injured, man. And we talked about the Anthony Duclair injury last week. Matt Barzal is now out for the next 4 to 6 weeks. He's got an injury. You look at not having Pelech, who's also out 4 to 6 weeks. They're on what's called long-term IR. And this is an Islander team that I know Patrick Wall was talking today that they're doing the right things. They're not getting the results. But eventually the results are going to be what cost you. And people understand that, hey, you don't have your top 2 scorers. But you've got to find ways to contribute in other ways. That's going to come down to a couple of different guys. Bo Horvat in that top line is going to have to be a big contributor. We know what Kyle Palmieri can do. Siplakov is going to have to make some big plays in the second line. You saw Waugh kind of change lines yesterday. The Casey Cizikas line, I thought, did a good job against the Rangers. Islanders, throughout the course of this week, they had a good win in Buffalo on Friday. They picked up a 4-3 victory. They had the losses, though, to Anaheim and Columbus, which kind of mellowed that out on top of the Barzal injury. They will host the Penguins tomorrow. They are home at Ottawa on Thursday, home to the Devils Saturday, and that's the 3 games they are coming up before their West Coast trip. So Islanders got to find a way to turn around quick. But you look at yesterday and why the Rangers had success against the Islanders. Rangers were 1 for 3 on the power play. Islanders were 0 for 5, including giving up the shorthanded goal early in that game to Chris Kreider. So the Rangers have their own issues right now, particularly defensively. And I think we've also seen that they're trying to get some of these other lines involved. They've actually yesterday split up that Panarin, Trocheck, Lafreniere line that was so well for them a year ago. And I kind of like that they did that. I like Peter Laviolette kind of going through different combinations. You saw Chris Kreider get 2 goals yesterday on the third line. You saw Vincent Trocheck get his 200th goal of his career, so congrats to him. Igor Shesterkin, I thought, played a good game in net. He had 35 saves. And one of the things to look at with Shesterkin, the reason the Rangers, I think, are having the success they had, and yes, they laid an egg in Washington, but Igor had 41 saves. I was looking up Igor's stats, and in the Rangers wins that he has played in 6 wins of the 8. Jonathan Quick, of course, has either 2. Igor has a 1.17 goals against in those wins. He has stopped 192 out of 199 shots. Now, the Rangers will get the top lines mixed up. Mika Zibanejad had a good game yesterday at 3 assists, and the Rangers are going to get the opportunities to score on special teams. They were great on that last year. The big issue is 5-on-5, and you want to put as few pucks around Igor Shesterkin as possible. Like, you look at Igor the last few games, he has faced almost 30 shots in each of the last 4. He faced 29 shots against Florida in that loss. But yesterday, 37 shots, 41 against Ottawa, 45 against Washington. Like, the Ottawa game, they had to just find a way to survive. In a game, they won 2-1. Like, they didn't have much offense against Linus Ullmark. Lafreniere and Panarin did their thing. Panarin's got 3 goals in the last 2 games. But again, what matters for the Rangers is when they get to the spring. That's when we're going to really judge this team. But the fact that they're 8-2-1 is off to a really good start. Rangers this week, by the way, as we did the others, only 2 games. They are home to Buffalo on Thursday. And then their third matchup with the Red Wings already this year. They'll be in Detroit Saturday. Rangers will have their West Coast trip closer to Thanksgiving in a couple of weeks. So a lot of West Coast trips for all 3 locals early in the year. Let's go to soccer. And how about the Red Bulls yesterday? That was a really fun game to watch. They were taking on the Columbus Crew. Not a lot of pressure for them because in the best of 3, they won game 1. They needed 1 more win to get into the semifinals. And from what I was reading, it's one of the biggest upsets in the history of the MLS playoffs. It was a stat I found this morning. It was from MLS Communications. The Red Bulls are the 3rd team since 2005 to eliminate a team in the postseason that recorded at least 19 more points than them during the regular season. The other 2, 2021 NYCFC beat New England on their way to a championship. And as Larry will attest to, the 05 Galaxy defeating San Jose. So this was a really fun game and a really fun series. Red Bulls ended up winning it in PKs. And I think when you look at this team, the Red Bulls are a different group now. They did give up a goal in the second half to Maximilian Arfsten. It was 1-0 Crew, but then Dante Van Zier scored 9 minutes later. They get the penalty. Emil Forsberg scores. And Forsberg, since coming back, has been a completely different player. We talk about the DPs, the designated players. They were a different team with Forsberg early in the year. They were winning all these games. And if he was there during international break or during injuries that he had, those draws they had in the summer might have led to more wins. So This is a dangerous 7 seed. This isn't your normal 7 seed in particular playoffs. So they get up 2-1. Christian Ramirez scores for Columbus. There was 12 minutes of stoppage time. He scored in the 6th minute of that. Goes to PKs. Basically, it was down to the last one. Columbus had a kick to win a couple of times, but the goalkeeper for the Red Bulls, Carlos Coronel, was doing a really good job stopping shots. And then the winning goal comes from Daniel Edelman. Daniel Edelman is actually from Wayne, New Jersey. So the local kid gets it done. Red Bulls move on. They will await the winner of FC Cincinnati and NYCFC. That matchup takes place on Saturday. Now, the playoffs are a little bit different in soccer. So there's best of 3 for the quarters, which I like. But for the first round. But then it becomes a knockout stage the rest of the way. But NYCFC staved off elimination last Saturday at Citi Field. They picked up a 3-1 win. They get a goal from Adrian Martinez in the 22nd minute. Thiago Martin scores his first goal. They had a 2-0 lead at the half. Cincy scores in the 65th minute with Luca Ariano. But they avoid that second half collapse. Santi Rodriguez puts it away with a PK at the end, and they win 3-1. So heading into a game 3, that'll be Saturday afternoon, 4 o'clock Eastern, at TQL Stadium. That's on MLS Season Pass on Apple TV. The winner of this game plays the Red Bulls. If NYCFC pulls the upset, Red Bull Arena will likely host the quarterfinal matchup. Yes, NYCFC would be the higher seed, but Citi Field, I think, has an event going on. It's 23rd, which is 2 weeks from Saturday. And Yankee Stadium has an event. It is Army Notre Dame that weekend. So that's where not having a home stadium would cost you, but we'll worry about that if we get to the home game. I think that's more. We'll see if NYCFC can kind of hold off Cincinnati. One thing to look at again with these matchups, though, the last 5 matchups have been decided by no more than 2 goals. So I think we're getting a really competitive game between these 2 teams. Also, shout out to Gotham FC. They're going to play their first home playoff game in team history Sunday at Red Bull Arena. They'll take on the Portland Thorns. This is a team that finished in the top 3 in the NWSL, trying to win back-to-back titles. So hopefully Gotham FC and Rose Lavelle can find a way to get that done. So hopefully they have some success this week as well. Going to college football, we'll move over to Syracuse, who found themselves trailing to a backup quarterback in Virginia Tech. And considering it the awful game they played against Pitt, you're like, this season's about to start to stumble in the wrong direction. But they found a way to bounce back. And Kyle McCord did his thing in the second half. They were able to drive down the field to tie the game in regulation. Quint Allen with a 1-yard run. Then they got the 9-yard run in overtime. They forced a fumble on Connor Schley. And Syracuse wins 38-31. McCord 24-35, 280, 2 touchdowns, and an interception. But the Orange are 6-2. They're bowl eligible. So props to Fran Brown in his first year at Syracuse getting this team to a bowl game. They did have 11 penalties, which I'm sure he's going to want to correct. But still, while Syracuse can't win the ACC because you look at the way Miami's playing and SMU and Louisville beating Clemson, the product with the ACC. But again, 9 wins isn't out of reach. Now, it starts this Saturday. They're at Boston College. The game's at noon. BC is actually slightly favored, but I think a coin flip. We'll see what Syracuse can do. They have 2 more games. They have 3 more games before, again, that big matchup against number 4 Miami, which Miami could be, maybe not for the playoff berth, but playing for a chance at a top 4 seed. That would be, I think, a lot of fun, that game at the Carrier Dome. But Syracuse has also been a house of horrors for Virginia Tech in terms of big wins. They showed that montage the other day, and it's kind of fun to go back and watch old Syracuse moments. Army, we're still trying to figure out where Bryson Daly is. Army did not have their starting quarterback last week. He missed all week of practice. There hasn't been an update on what his status is, but Army took on Air Force. It wasn't the blowout win, but they got enough of their ground game. Kanye Udo ran for 158 yards and 2 touchdowns. I thought Army's quarterback, Dwayne Coleman, did a really good job. And one thing to think about with Coleman, he's a junior quarterback. He only had essentially completed one pass last year. And Army doesn't throw the ball that much, but this is a guy that doesn't get a lot of time playing. So step in for an undefeated team, a lot of pressure, did a really good job. I thought their defense, Army ended up getting 6 sacks, so their defense took over this game. They're in really good position. Now, they have moved up to 18th in the AP poll. That is their highest ranking since 1960. We'll see where they are tomorrow night when the first college football rankings come out. Now, they're still behind big in the AP. Boise State very much in control in that group of 5 spot, but Army still has everything in front of them. 3 more regular season games to go, trying to complete the undefeated season. And it starts Saturday. They take on North Texas. The Mean Green. Army is favored by 5.5. North Texas, the team, they have a good quarterback in Morris, 26 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. But one thing to look at North Texas, they don't really stop the run that well. So we'll see if Army's rushing attack can be enough to get them 9-0. And then if they do win, to get the game again 3:30 on ESPN2. If they do win that game, they will go into the Notre Dame game undefeated. And Notre Dame is likely to go into that game undefeated. Well, not undefeated, but Notre Dame hasn't lost since the Northern Illinois game. So makes that Army Notre Dame game really huge. But the Black Knights have to do their part. In terms of the other college football action, Rutgers had the week off. They are home to Minnesota this week. Minnesota beat Illinois on the road. That game is on NBC at noon this week, so Rutgers gets a little national spotlight, but they have to win this game or they have to win 2 of the last 3 to be bowl eligible. So Scarlet Knights have to kind of salvage their year, but Minnesota and PJ Fleck are kind of rolling at the right time. And finally, college basketball. Now, I'm a big college basketball fan for those who are new to the show that have been around since January. College basketball, I feel like, is the sport that I'm most into. Not most into. I'm a big baseball fan and football, but college basketball to me is third. I love March Madness. I love kind of the feel around it. And being a St. John's alum, I have grown to kind of embrace the Johnnies in a sense. So you'll get a lot of talk of that on this show. But there is college basketball tonight. St. John's is in action. They're going to take on Fordham. And this is a big year for Rick Pitino in year 2. Now, last year they missed the tournament. You could argue if they should have made it or not. I think they did too much damage early in the year. But you look at this Red Storm team, and they've added a lot of new talent, whether it's Davion Smith, transfer, Aaron Scott, the transfer from North Texas, Jaden Glover is a freshman that's going to do some good things. And the big addition is Kadary Richmond from Seton Hall. I think if St. John's gets enough shooting, I think that's the big thing between Brady Dunlap and Simeon Wilcher, who came back from last year's team. But they are very deep. Like watching the Rutgers exhibition, you saw Owuchukwu, the center, do a really good job. 7'1" junior. He was a good player. And keep in mind, RJ Lewis is back, and I think he's like the 8th. When you get to St. John's, you're looking at the 6th or 7th kind of guy on the roster. So to me, I am very high on this team. I think this is a team that has a chance to win the Big East. They're in the top 4, at least in the preseason in the Big East. They're a team that could potentially be ranked when we get into late November. So a lot of things are in front of them. If they can start to gel and really find things, and now Pitino's had a full year to kind of get his system into place, they could really do something special. I don't know how special. I'm not going to say Final Four, but I think they should definitely be in the NCAA tournament this year. But they'll take on Fordham tonight. Seton Hall, they're a team that's going to be really interesting to follow this year because they're picked to finish 10th in the Big East. I think they're a lot better than 10th for sure. Like I think that they've got, when you look at this team, they did lose Kadary Richmond, which again is a big loss to this group. I think they could definitely look at a different direction. But they do bring out Dylan Adewusu back, and I really like the transfers they brought in. Scotty Middleton from Ohio State, Garway Dahl from Providence. And one of the things you learn with Shaheen Holloway is he tends to get the most out of a roster that doesn't have that much talent. Now, they're going to take some growing pains along the way, but maybe this is a Seton Hall team that I don't want to play in January or February when they start to figure stuff out. They will take on St. Peter's tonight. That's 7:30 on FS1. They will play Fordham on Saturday. So the Rams will get both Seton Hall and St. John's this week to start their year. But not a lot of expectations for Seton Hall, but we'll see how they do. Meanwhile, Rutgers will have all of the national attention because of who's on their roster between Dylan Harper and Ace Bailey. Like, this is a really intriguing Scarlet Knights team that Steve Peichel has. They don't play till Wednesday, but they'll take on Wagner, another local team in the area. Wagner, of course, made the NCAA tournament last year. St. John's, by the way, plays Quinnipiac later this week. Quinnipiac, one of the teams favored in the Metro Atlantic. But you look at Rutgers, and I think the interesting thing is going to be how those freshmen handle the spotlight. But this is a Rutgers team that also has other guys to keep an eye on than just those freshmen. Like Zach Martini coming over from Princeton. It's a team that won the guy who made a run in the Sweet 16 in the NCAA tournament. Jordan Durkak from Merrimack, a very good defensive team. So you're going to have a good defensive kind of guard. Lathan Somerville, this guy come off the going to provide some front court depth. Because Rutgers, to me, their issue is going to be in the interior. We saw St. John's kind of attack that in the preseason. And Rutgers has, I think, a favorable schedule. They should be undefeated going into the festival tournament in Vegas later this month when they play Notre Dame and right now Alabama, which would be the number 2 team in the country. I think that would be a good test for Rutgers toward the end of the month. Their pick to the middle of the pack in the Big Ten will really see what they can do at that stage. But overall, some interesting things to watch. And then in the ACC, of course, we got to talk some Syracuse. They take on Lemoyne tonight at 7 o'clock. They play Lemoyne this week. Then they play Colgate next week. Obviously, Syracuse without Jim Boeheim, of course, we're a couple years removed from that. But you look at this Syracuse team. Of course, the ACC is always loaded. The ACC has always got a lot of talent. And it's tough to see what to expect from the Orange this year. Last year, this was a group that you could see this team potentially be an 18-win team, could potentially be a 22-win team. I'm not really sure what they could be. They've got 4 players coming back. Judah Mintz being the big player that you keep an eye on. Mintz can take over, but really needs a lot more help with that Orange team. So we'll follow all these college basketball teams throughout the year as we get closer to the end. January, February, we'll do some updates on the smaller conferences like Metro Atlantic, like the Northeast, kind of get you maybe some vibes on maybe some of the locals that can make some noise. We've seen Hofstra kind of make an interesting push with Speedy Claxton in recent years. So a lot of fun going on in terms of those college basketball squads. I want to thank everybody for tuning in again. Episode 63 this week. Baseball, we're now in the off season. We're now in the hot stove year, and Juan Soto preparing for the off season by apparently playing video games, which he showed on Instagram. But we'll see what happens there. But we're going to do a lot more basketball and hockey as we get over the next few months. Of course, the football season, the Jets will try to keep their somewhat what's left of their season afloat this weekend in the desert against the Cardinals. I think that's going to be a really tough game for this Jets team. They're going to have to stop the run. James Conner, I think, is going to give them some really big fits. And we'll see if the matchup's going to be fun. It's going to be Sauce Gardner against Marvin Harrison. Marvin Harrison Jr. I think that matchup is going to be interesting. The Jets can win these next two against Arizona and whatever quarterback is playing for the Colts. And 5 and 6 going to the bye isn't that unreasonable. And then with the way the NFL is set up, as we mentioned, 14 teams with a winning record, but 9 teams have 2 wins. Who knows what can happen? Guys, they're one of those 2-win teams, and we have to send them to Germany to play the family. Daniel Jones will get a win, but I do predict that this will be the last time Daniel Jones plays and they make the QB switch after the bye. Knicks with 4 games this week. A couple of tough ones. Milwaukee, they'll try to take advantage of while they're down. We got Indiana again this week on the road. Love the starting 5 starting to get some chemistry and some really good numbers. Brooklyn's in front of watch offensively. Hockey-wise, Rangers try to stay afloat. Islanders trying to stay afloat. Football, we got Army trying to stay segment. Trying to get some segment. Scott Walker tries to keep their hopes and eligibility alive. A lot going on here in the New York, New Jersey sports scene. As we get into November, it'll start to get colder. Great. And we'll also get football, basketball, hockey, college football, college basketball, baseball is over. Now we're excited for that as we get closer, and any free and signing for so many sports to dive into. And of course, the soccer. Congrats to those Red Bulls going to the quarterfinals. We'll up to the semifinals in the MLS playoffs, and we'll see if they can keep that going. Can the NYCFC join them? Will be in Hudson River Derby playoff match, and we don't see off. Small but good ice for freedom. You are saying a great rest of the week.